President Biden announced the sale of 15 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Now, the sale comes less than 3 weeks before the midterm elections. Congressman Khanna of California joins me now from Washington. Congressman, it's good to have you back. Let's talk about the decision here. OPEC's cut of production of oil is going to be about 1 million barrels a day or so. So 15 million barrels to offset last, 2 weeks? What's the longer term strategy you think that this administration should employ?
Well, Victor, you're right. I mean, it's a short-term solution, but we need to be far tougher on the Saudis and demand that they reconsider their decision. We've supplied them with all their weapons. They are basically being ungrateful and slapping American consumers on the face. Second, we need to ban an export of our gasoline other than to our European allies.
You've been talking about this ban, especially in sales to China, for months now. Are you getting any engagement from the White House on this?
Victor, we finally are. They're saying they're open to looking at the proposal. They're saying that there are going to be consequences also for the Saudis. But I think it's time to act. I have called on the president to give a primetime address to lay out exactly what we will do on gas prices. And two concrete things are an export ban and also being tougher on the Saudis.
So I want to talk about the consequences for and your bill in just a moment, but more on the SPR. It's now at its lowest level since 1984. Should the president tap into it again to keep prices low?
Yes, Victor, but I had written an op-ed in the New York Times in June saying that the government should be buying at the dips, and this would have been replenishing the supply when oil was at a low price. So if we're going to now tap it further, we need to have the government also engage in the purchasing of oil when oil is dipping so that we're not depleting the reserve.
Yeah, the president says that'll happen once oil hits about $70 a barrel. Let me ask you about the consequences that you want to see for Saudi Arabia. You've now introduced a bill which mirrors the one in the Senate introduced by Senator Blumenthal, which would call for a freeze of arms sales to Saudi Arabia for at least a year. I want you to listen to the former Saudi ambassador for the U.S. to Saudi Arabia, what he thinks about that idea. This is Robert Jordan.
That would probably be the greatest gift we could give to Iran. I think it makes no sense at all to pause arms sales that are legitimately needed. If these were just decorative items, it would be another matter. But obviously, we've made some determination they have a need for the weapons. We need to maintain their security. They need to be responsible for more of their own security, but it doesn't help us if they're going off to China or Russia to buy arms. We're not going to sell them to them.
What's your response to that?
Well, with due respect, Ambassador Jordan has been responsible for our failed policy with the Saudis. I mean, the Saudis blatantly murdered Khashoggi, a Washington Post journalist. The Saudis are responsible for the brutal war in Yemen. They absolutely can't go to China and Russia, and anyone who knows national security knows it would take them 10 years to get that. And all of the folks on national security understand the issue, know that it's U.S. technicians that are responsible basically for flying the Saudi planes. So this is calling for a strategic pause. It would do nothing in terms of having a tough relationship on Iran. And, you know, frankly, people like Ambassador Jordan have been responsible for the failed policy to the Saudis over the last decade.
Let's move on to some of the other issues that are top of mind ahead of the midterms, 19 days away from the vote. The president says that if Democrats maintain control of both chambers, that the first bill he'd send over would be to codify Roe, specifically on abortion rights. Do you think that that should be the first priority for congressional Democrats?
Yes, because it's a matter of human rights. But right with that should be a second priority, and that is on the economy. And we have to have policies, one, that are going to go after the price gouging of corporations that are charging too much for food, for gas, and we need to be bringing manufacturing home to tackle inflation. I have been pretty candid that I think the Democrats have not done enough on making the economic argument. We have to have legislation on the economy as well.
You know who agrees with you is Senator Bernie Sanders. He was on with Anderson Cooper last night. Let's play a bit of that.
I happen to believe that a woman's right to control her own body is absolutely where we should be, and that the Supreme Court decision was a total disaster. But I also happen to think that given the fact that for the last 50 years, real wages for American workers are lower today than they are 50 years ago, that people can't afford health care, they can't afford prescription drugs. I think those are issues.
I hear you saying that you think that Democrats are not spending enough time making the economic argument. Do you believe that there will be a price to pay, that there will be a consequence in these races for not making that argument over the next 19 days?
Well, Victor, we still have 19 days to make the economic argument. Senator Sanders is exactly right. We have to talk about how wages have stagnated. What are we going to do to put more money in the pockets of working families and bring more jobs back? And President Obama made the same exact point on Pod Save America. He said we have to be talking about pocketbook issues, gas, the cost of groceries. And he obviously had two smashing victories and won many red states. So I think absolutely let's codify Roe versus Wade when we have the majority, but we have to have bill number 2, 3, 4, 5 about what we're going to do on the economy.
Congressman Ro Khanna, always good to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.